teacher guide is about the Mindset Learn series of lessons on exponents. This teacher guide will tell you what the series of lessons is about and how it links to the curriculum. We'll also discuss ideas for using the lessons with your learners. You may want to make notes, so have pencil and paper ready. In this series of 10 lessons, we explain the concept of exponential growth with a fascinating look at fractals. In a clear and logical progression, we establish the laws of exponents and apply them so that learners can simplify expressions that contain exponents. Lesson 2 and 3 establish the laws for multiplying and dividing numbers with exponents. Then, Lesson 4 introduces negative exponents and zero exponents. Then, we raise a power to the power and then apply the laws to some examples. We move on to reduce large numbers to their prime factors and exponents. Lesson 8 deals with the rational exponents, and we end with 2 lessons of practical use of all the laws. In this series, we address learning outcome 1, numbers and number relationships. The assessment standard 10.1.2a states that the learner must be able to simplify expressions using the laws of exponents for integral exponents. So at this level, learners should be able to work with positive and negative exponents that contain numbers and variables, but they do not need to work with rational exponents yet. The series also includes 1 lesson on rational exponents, which is extension work to prepare learners for grade 11. By the end of this video series, your learners should be able to use the laws of exponents to simplify this type of expression. The learning outcome and assessment standard for each lesson are stated at the beginning of each lesson in the series. Lesson outcomes linked to these are also given for each lesson. Throughout the series, we use the concept that powers are simply repeated multiplication. All too often, learners are expected to simply apply laws without first having a chance to understand why the laws are true. To address this problem, we've taken an educational approach that allows learners to discover the laws for themselves. When investigating the laws of exponents, we continue to use repeated multiplication as the tool. We discover and investigate the laws rather than simply stating them. When learners understand concepts, it's easier for them to apply them to algebraic expressions. So that learners can observe exponential growth in a real context, we demonstrate this in fractals, in triangles, and in paper folding. After we investigate numeric examples that help us to establish the laws of exponents, we assess the learner's understanding of the laws learned so far. Thereafter, we do further investigations and learn how to simplify expressions. We conclude the series with a lesson which can be used to assess the learner's knowledge of what has been covered in the series. The success of these video lessons depends on the way you use them in your classroom. We suggest that you watch the lessons yourself as part of your planning. Decide which videos you'll use and think about how to integrate them into your learning program. To get the full benefit of the lessons, your learners need to engage actively with the concepts presented. So when you preview the lessons, think about how to introduce each lesson and what follow-up activities will be useful. Also, watch out for places in the video where you could pause to have a discussion with your class, or ask learners to complete an activity or to solve a problem posed in the video. We have used this pause icon to suggest some of these places to you. As you watch each lesson, make a note of what materials and other resources you might need to bring to the class. Assessment is an important part of teaching and learning, and the lessons provide opportunities for a range of different types of assessment. When you pause the video for learners to do an activity, you can assess the understanding of key ideas in the video and adjust your lesson plan if necessary. The task provided at the end of each lesson is also linked to at least one of the lesson outcomes, and thus provides you with a useful assessment opportunity. In this series, the tasks have been designed to extend learners beyond the theory covered in the lesson. Learners need to practice the concepts from the lesson, and you may need to provide further exercises from a textbook. You should try to make time to do the practical investigations suggested in the first lesson. Learners will see for themselves how quickly the thickness of the folded paper increases, but they'll also see that more than 7 folds is not possible, no matter how big the paper is. In order to appreciate the numerical values of the powers, your learners need to experience the incredible rate of the growth that is produced by repeated multiplication. In the task, they will discover this in an example using money. We arrive at the exponential laws using our understanding of repeated multiplication. It is important that your learners discover these rules for themselves by doing examples. Although it takes time, let the class do examples and write out the numbers that are multiplied or divided. Before starting lesson 3, remind learners of the importance of the order in which they perform operations. Use simple examples such as these. Allow learners to discuss why the answers differ from these examples. For the task for lesson 3, the presenter warns, watch out, it's tricky. The task requires learners to add powers, which hasn't been taught or revised. Perhaps you could just use this task as enrichment for a stronger learner. In the 4th lesson, we discover that negative exponents in the numerator of an expression can be written as positive exponents in the denominator. We also derive the meaning of a zero exponent. In this lesson, we also examine 0 divided by 0. Remind learners that this is undefined because of the denominator. Explain that 0 in the denominator makes the statement undefined. By the end of lesson 5, it is important for learners to compare multiplying or dividing exponents with raising a power to a power so that they can understand when to add or subtract exponents and when to multiply them. Before starting this lesson, revise the laws of exponents. Make sure that the learners can state the laws very specifically, including statements such as, if the bases are the same. Once your learners have grasped the skill of calculations with exponents, give them many exercises to practice quick manipulation. Use your textbook exercises to reinforce concepts learned in the series of lessons. This will prepare learners for the assessment in lesson 6. The game show activity in this lesson lends itself to splitting the class into pairs or teams. You might want to set up a real quiz situation and reward the winning team. Another suggestion is to use this activity for individual assessment. Besides applying the correct answers, learners could be asked to explain how they arrived at those answers. In the 7th lesson, we work with prime numbers. When your learners are asked to find the prime numbers in the video lesson, pause the video and give the learners time to do it on their own. Before discussing prime factorization, ensure that the class knows what factorization is. Make sure that they understand that the numbers or factors are multiplied by each other. We do not work with terms that are added or subtracted. In the 8th lesson, we move from integral exponents to rational exponents, or exponents that are fractions. Before you start showing this lesson, review the definition of a rational number. Remember that this is an extension work and is in the grade 11 curriculum. Before starting the 9th lesson, remind learners about what the distributive law states. Use different forms of terminology, including raising a power to ensure that learners understand the concepts. Before starting with the examples that include variables, assess the learner's understanding by letting them do a numeric example, such as this one. If you do not get the correct answer by using the laws, let them go back to the basics and write out the numbers that they multiplied. This will help them rediscover the importance of working with like bases. This 10th lesson reviews all the laws learnt in the series. You might want to use the examples to assess your learners before showing them the answers in the video lesson. We have suggested a useful assessment grid in the lesson notes. There is a set of lesson notes for the video series on our website. These notes give you a summary of the key points of each lesson and the tasks and the task answers. More detailed teacher support for this series, including additional ideas for assessing your learners' progress towards the assessment standards, is also available on the website. We trust that you and the learners will benefit by our approach of using repeated multiplication to establish the laws of exponents. We believe that this approach makes the laws more understandable and easier to remember.